Ready to elevate your credit understanding and score? With insider tips and a plan, you can take action to improving your score, which can save thousands in unnecessary finance charges. Let's tackle today's topic with your coach, Credit Christy.
Hey, it's Christy, your credit coach. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. Today, let's talk about different ways to get out of debt and specifically focusing on debt settlement companies. So if you have any outstanding debt right now, there's a really good chance that you are being targeted by companies such as National Debt Relief, who might be sending you mail or even stalking you online with ads. This company is paying a tremendous amount of money to get in front of people that have debt and lure you in to their debt settlement program. So let's first start talking about some various ways to get out of debt, and then we will spend some extra time talking about debt settlement programs. Now, I really want you to lean in on the words that I choose to describe the different types of debt repayment strategies, because there's a lot of power in these words, but also companies, much like National Debt Relief, tend to misconstrue those words. So what feels like it might be a consolidation or getting you out of your debt in a humane way might actually be slaughtering your credit profile. So let's dive in. One of the most popular ways that I see people getting out of debt is by utilizing debt consolidation loans. So a true debt consolidation is when you obtain a new loan or a new credit card and transfer the balances from an existing loan or credit cards, those debts into the new one. So this can come in the form of a bank loan, which is typically an installment loan paid over maybe like 5 to 7 years. And it's just for personal or debt consolidation purposes only. You might be able to qualify for a credit card transfer. A lot of times you can take one or several credit cards, roll those balances into the new credit card that has a lower interest rate or an incentive interest rate for a limited time, like say 12 months or 18 months, 0% interest, something along those lines. Now that's a really effective way to have all or most of your payments against those credit card bills going towards paying down the balances, where if you are in a high interest rate credit card right now, the majority of your minimum payment goes towards just simply paying the interest. So you won't see that balance get paid down. Another way, if you're a homeowner, is you can tap into your equity and get a home equity line or a home equity loan on your home. This is a second mortgage, so it goes behind your existing mortgage. This allows you to keep that nice low interest rate if you got a loan over the last couple of years, and maybe you're in the 2s or the 3s and you don't want to refinance your loan. This is a great way to tap into the equity of your home, and it's usually a much lower payment than, say, paying other personal loans or high interest credit cards. Now, you could also look at a refinance on your home if you've got the equity there to do so, but what you're doing is you're often taking debts that could be paid off in 5 to 7 years, and you're now adding them to a debt that takes, well, it's amortized over 30 years. Closing costs are typically higher on a refinance loan than on any other kind of loan. So this way is the most expensive way to consolidate. Now, what do all of these have in common? They all require you to have a good credit rating and qualify on income to be able to pay back this debt. So not everybody's in that position. I know a lot of people right now have their credit cards maxed out, and because of that, their credit scores are suffering. And so you may not be able to qualify for a new debt consolidation loan. Also, the trap in all of this is I've watched people get a new loan to get out of debt only to go back and max out those credit cards again. So please use great judgment with this. Now, what you could do is sit down and make a budget. And I know for some people, a budget can be a very dirty word. Do you spell it with 4 letters? Because for some people, a budget feels like a 4-letter word. But what I mean by this is sometimes we've put meaning to words because of what we affiliate with that word. A budget for a lot of people can feel very restrictive. And so that's why a lot of people don't follow a budget. But what if I helped you to just reformulate that thought? So bear with me for just a moment. What if a budget allowed you to be the boss of your money rather than your money being the boss of you? If you feel really extended right now, really stretched in your finances, something's got to give. And the way to do that is to sit down and write a budget At the time of this recording, it is December. Would you agree that your costs of living are a little bit higher in December with all of the holidays and gift giving than any other time of the year? Yeah. So a budget might be something you look at and revise every single month. Now, if we were really honest with ourselves, is there some places you could squeeze a little bit of money out of? Maybe you make coffee at home instead of going through the drive-thru, or bring your lunch to work. Maybe you cut out going out to eat maybe 1 or 2 extra times a month. I bet right there you could squeeze out a couple $100 a month. What I want to encourage you to do is something called debt stacking. This is where you're going to really put everything you can extra onto one debt, paying it down and eliminating that payment. And then you take what was that monthly payment plus that extra that you're able to squeeze out of your budget and put against that debt. Once that's paid down, roll that amount onto the next credit card. So let's say you have 4 credit cards and you want them all gone. You could either stack them in the lowest amount to get paid off to the highest, or the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. I know I was just talking to somebody the other day. They have a 0% furniture store and they have a 0% at the Home Depot on an appliance. So even though those were smaller credit card balances, keep feeding that monthly payment and let's tackle those last. In that case, go after the one that's 22, 25, 29% interest and let's get that gone. So when you start slamming that extra money against it, you'll finally start seeing a dent in that balance. Once that first credit card is gone, start working on the next one. All the while, you are paying at least a minimum on the other credit cards. Don't let those go late. Now, this is going to require some discipline. It's going to require you following a budget, and it will probably require you to stop charging against those credit cards. Otherwise, those decreasing balances, well, they keep going up again. So we've got to stop adding debt to those credit card balances. So just focus on one credit card at a time to slam that extra money against it. And once it's gone, you roll that amount you were paying onto the next one and then the next one. Not only can this save you thousands of dollars in interest charges, it could also eliminate years worth of payments versus just paying the minimum payment each month. Okay, so let's say you cannot qualify for a debt consolidation loan, and let's say there's just no way to squeeze even $20 out of your crazy tight budget, and Christy's over here talking about $200 a month? Get out of here. Okay, then let's look at the next best option, and that is credit counseling. It's a debt management option that is provided by a non-profit organization. Now, that does not mean they're free, but it does mean that their approach is very, very different than a debt settlement company such as National Debt Relief that we'll talk about next. So credit counseling is offered through nonprofit organizations, and what they typically do after consulting with you and after educating you so that way you don't go back into the same habits and behaviors that got you into debt, they will help negotiate a payment plan, which typically involves a reduction of an interest rate for each of your credit cards, and sometimes installment loans. The payment plan typically goes for like 3 to 5 years, and what they do is they negotiate on your behalf to your creditors. Now they're going to say, hey, look, Christy's in a tough place. She's struggling with a lot of debt, more than what she can handle right now, and she wants to make sure she pays you back in full. The problem is she can barely make the minimum monthly payments, and that's putting her in a really bad spot. So what we would like to see is a reduction in the interest rate so that more of the monthly payment can go towards paying you back in full. Well, think about this. Interest is kind of like monopoly money. It's just extra, added, and above. Was it part of the agreement on why they fronted you the money in advance? Well, yes. But if you went and put $5,000 on a credit card bill, they legit put out $5,000 on your behalf. What do you think they want more? To be paid back the entire $5,000, or to be paid back over years and years and years, maybe $6,700? Well, if the option is getting paid back quickly the entire amount owed and less in interest versus maybe you going to a debt settlement company and they get, half, what do you think they're going to choose? So creditors tend to really enjoy working with credit counseling agencies because of this really approachable perspective on let's try to make this a win-win for everybody. So a lot of times you might see your 20-something% interest rate get sliced in half by going through a credit counseling agency. Here's the difficult part. Those credit cards typically wind up having to get closed. So it's going to hurt your credit score for a little while. And here's why. When we're talking about a credit card, which is a revolving trade line, that credit card has a limit, how much is available to you, and it has a balance, how much is outstanding or used by you. And that factor, that percentage, is referred to as a utilization factor. How much of what is available to you are you utilizing or using? When that credit card is closed but it has an outstanding balance, you're actually in the red. So you have a zero limit and maybe several $1,000s as a balance. So you can see how this is going to hurt your credit score. But it's temporary and it's getting you back onto greener grass. So this is a great way to pay back your creditors in full and get back on your feet again. That is a credit counseling debt repayment strategy. I feel like it's the most honoring of oneself and the creditors to do that. But there are companies like National Debt Relief that again spend millions of dollars getting in front of all of us to advertise their debt settlement program. So what is debt settlement? It's also known as debt negotiation or debt arbitration. You probably could do it yourself, but most people would hire somebody like National Debt Relief. And what they do is they have you stop making payments on your credit cards. So let's say you have 4 or 5 outstanding credit cards and you're really struggling to make those monthly payments. See, they can do a soft tap into your credit and see, oh wow, look, between these 4 credit cards, Christy's paying $580 a month in minimum payments. So they might send you a nice little love letter saying, hey, we can help settle your debt and lower your monthly payment. How does $400 a month sound? And I'm like, oh my gosh, $180 extra a month in my pocket and not going to my debt? That sounds amazing. Well, here's how this actually works. What they'll do is they'll have you stop making your monthly payments to your creditors and send them the agreed upon amount instead. And they're collecting your money month after month after month. In the meantime, they have sent a cease and desist letter, essentially, to your creditors saying, hey, don't call our client, don't bother them with collections. So if you were late in the past, you might have been experiencing collection calls. And now all of a sudden, this feels good. I don't have these pesky collection agencies calling me, because let's face it, they're not the nicest people on the phone, right? So in the meantime, you have a 30-day late, a 60-day late, a 90-day late, a 120-day late, which, by the way, the later your debt gets every time it reports month after month, the worse it hits, the deeper it cuts on just literally trashing your credit profile and your credit score. And once it's 120 days late, a lot of times that's when your creditor sends off your account to a collection agency. So now not only do you have 4+ months of late payments on this account, you now have a new derogatory account known as a collection account. So all the while, companies like National Debt Relief is collecting this money from you month after month after month. And what they'll do is, now that your creditors are bleeding, they'll call them and say, hey, we'd like to settle for around 25%. 50%, whatever they can negotiate for the reduction or settlement of that amount that's owed to them. And then National Debt Relief takes a big cut of the money that you've been sending to them every single month, and they give a portion of it to your creditors. So let's say you owed, Capital One $2,000, and they're able to get a payment for $900. After 3 or 4 months of you paying that $400 a month towards National Debt Relief, they'll have that money there to pay the $900, and then they keep their cut, whatever that is. I've read online that National Debt Relief gets somewhere around 25% of the negotiated amount. So if they negotiate that $2,000 down to a $1,000 payoff, they're going to collect from you, out of that payment that you've been making each month, $250 to do so. Now, here's where integrity comes in, at least for me. When I accepted a credit card or a loan, I also accepted the terms. I will pay my payment on time. I will pay this debt back to you. I will be a good little borrower and have a good long-standing relationship with you. But sometimes stuff happens. There's an illness. There's an unexpected debt. We lose our job. There's so many different things that, life is just what happens on the daily, right? And no one said this is going to be easy. but I don't like the thought of paying back my debts for less than what I agreed to, which is why I love the strategy of working with the credit counseling agencies. See, they make it about the interest and the payment, where a debt settlement makes it about them making money and then the creditor getting some little dibs and drabs of what they collect. Keep in mind, if a creditor accepts less than what's owed, they will report that on your credit report underneath that collection, settled for less than owed, which can have a negative effect on not only your credit score, but how other companies in the future that you go to apply for credit with, how they view you. Think of if you were going to go apply for a mortgage loan and the underwriter is looking at your credit history. They're looking at your ability to manage your obligations, to borrow money and pay it back on time. And then they see all these late payments, and then they see these collections. And not only does something become a collection, but it was settled for less than owed. Friends, that's a lot different than what is reported when it's a credit counseling agency that says manage through a debt repayment plan. Also, beware that that settled portion of the debt could be considered taxable income, and that creditor can send you a 1099 to pay taxes on. Oh yeah, it's gross. So what does your credit profile look like once you have agreed to work with a national debt relief type of company? You've got many, many months late on your payments on any of the accounts that you've agreed to send through them. You've paid this company a tremendous amount of money out of that monthly payment that you've been sending to them, and you've agreed to pay your creditors less than what they fronted on your behalf, that you agreed to pay back. And friends, this can tank your credit score by hundreds of points. It could literally take years for your credit history and profile to recuperate. I think debt settlement companies are nasty. I think it's gross. And I think that this is the last resort. And this means you've tried working with a credit counseling agency, and for some reason that didn't work out. That's when you would go to a national debt relief, because they will screw your credit profile. And I want you to shine as bright on paper as you do in real life. And this is going to dim your light. So be very, very cautious when it comes to working with debt settlement companies. And then a last resort is going to be a bankruptcy. This is where you work through an attorney. It has to be approved by a judge. And a Chapter 7 wipes out all of your debts. And a Chapter 13 is typically a repayment plan over usually 3 to 5 years to repay the majority or all of your debts. It's paid to the courts, and then the court distributes it to your creditors. Now, a bankruptcy record is going to stay on your credit for 10 years. It can also keep you from qualifying for a traditional mortgage for several years. So keep that in mind when you are talking to a bankruptcy attorney if you need to talk about liquidating your debts or coming up with an additional or different kind of repayment plan. And here's a fun fact. A traditional bankruptcy, a Chapter 7, has income thresholds. So you might earn too much to even qualify for a Chapter 7. So I hope this information helps you to make some really great decisions when it comes to how to handle your repayment strategies if getting out of debt is a really big goal of yours for 2025. So please avoid national debt relief with everything in you and check out a non-profit credit counseling service. A great place to start is nfcc.org. That is nfcc.org. That's the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, and they can be a great resource for you. They can advise you on managing your money and debts, help you develop a budget, get a copy of your credit report and your scores. They offer free educational materials and workshops, and then they can organize a debt management plan to help you pay down your debts responsibly. So log on there to find a credit counselor. You can also check out Financial Counseling Association of America, which is another one that's recommended by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I have no affiliation with any of these companies, so I'm not sharing their names because I get any kind of kickback or anything like that. I'm just sharing it with you so you know there is an alternative and a better solution than national debt relief. Have I beat this dead horse enough? Can you hear it in my voice? How much I despise debt settlement companies? And it's just so unfortunate, the manipulative advertisement that they use. All right, friends, how can I serve you? What is your goal this year? What do you need to know about? Send me an email at questions@creditchristie.com. Share with me your struggles, your questions, what you're dealing with, your concerns, or maybe you have a great episode topic you'd like to share with me. So send it my way. I'll turn it into an episode. So if you've listened to any of my past episodes, you know this is my ministry. This is my heart. By design, I don't have any commercials. I don't make a dime off of this. I just want to do a great job of helping to educate and empower you. So if you're still listening, would you do me a favor? Spotify tells me about 50% of my listeners listen on iTunes. Would you go to this show and give me a great review? The more 5-star reviews and the more comments that are listed helps me show up to help more people. And this isn't about me. This is about the listener that needs to hear this information but doesn't know it exists yet. And if you want to get deeper when it comes to money conversations, check out my book, Finish Financially Free. You can find it on Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, or hopefully a bookstore near you. Finish Financially Free. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. And until next time, my friends, stay well.
Subscribe now and share with a friend to stay in the loop for new credit content and insider tips to maximize your credit knowledge. And follow Credit Christie on Instagram.